So let's discuss what we did last time. Again, when I say last time, I'm not talking about the last session, I'm talking about the actual session which we did 2 weeks back, not this week's session. Okay, so if you remember, we have created a method for test.htm which will return me the list of questions, right? So what I will do now is I will simply run this code. Let's see what happens. Now I just made one more change in the project before going live. I have added one more tag here which is called as MVC annotation driven, because if you want to use RESTful web services, you have to add this annotation which is MVC annotation driven, because you want to return a JSON file, right? So I have added this annotation here. Yeah, I was talking about the people who are joining for the first time. So if you are joining this session for the first time, we are doing a live code here. We are building a project. We are redesigning my website. So if you don't know about that, just go to my website, which is telusko.com, and have a look what exactly telusko.com is, and you will understand what we are trying to redesign. Okay, so this is what I have made a change. We have changed MVC annotation, and this is the 8th session. Okay, so make sure you have seen the earlier session to get the better understanding of it. Okay, so let me just run this code. Let's see if it is working or not. So if I say run this code, just taking some time to load. Okay, done. So if I'm not wrong, I'm using a port number which is 8085, and the project name is Tusk, and we are searching for test.htm. So when I send a request for test.htm, you can see it will try to fetch data from the database, and yeah, you can see we got all the questions. The awesome thing is, every time you run this code, you will get a different questions, right? This is what we have done in the last session. Now, the first thing is, what you are getting here is the list. It is the list of values. Okay, so you are getting a list of questions here. But to make it work, I want to fetch a JSON file. Now, how do I fetch a JSON file here? How do I convert this data into JSON? Now, first of all, if you compare these two methods, we have get questions and test. You can see we have the same code. So let me remove the extra code there, which is test.htm. I will simply use get questions, because even get questions will give you the same thing, right? So I will say get questions. I will say get questions.htm, and if I do that, okay. So you can see we are getting questions, but there's only one problem. We are getting more than what we expected, because it is giving you all the questions, right? If you remember, I think we should go for this one only, because this is get test question and that is get questions. Okay, so get questions will give you everything, and get test questions will give you only test questions. So what I will do is I will change this method, because nowhere I want all the questions, right? I want only 5 questions. So I will go with get questions only, which will fetch only 5 questions. And let me just go back here. When I say get questions now, I made the changes and it should reflect now, and you can see we got 5 questions. Now every time I run this code, every time I say enter, it will give me 5 questions. Now what I want is, I want to fetch this data in a page, right? Example, think about this. If you are a participant and if you want to give a test, just imagine if you go to my website and if you see a question or something like this, you will not like it, right? So you want questions in such a way that you can actually give answers. So of course we need a GUI here. We need a page where you can show these questions. So I have created a design for this. So now I have created this design. Okay, now the thing is, I'm not that good with designing. So what I'm doing is I'm using the earlier design. Again, this design is open to change. Okay, so you can change the design of this. So you can change the design for this. Okay, so this is the design which we did last time. So let me just okay, this is what we have done last time. Okay, I'm using the same design here. Again, this design is open for change. If you want to change something, just let us know what you want to give it to us. So there's a design, and so how it works exactly. So before even doing anything extra, let me just run this code. Let's see what happens if I call. How do I call test.jsp? So when I call for, okay, now first of all we have to call that page, right? Because this is the page which will be getting called, and you will see these questions. Okay, now question arises, how do we call this test.jsp? Because I want those questions on test.jsp. Now to call a test.jsp, we need one more controller. So when you call for .htm, it will call for .jsp. So what I will do is I will copy test.htm. So I will copy this code. Okay, I do have a code already. I will just use that code, and so whenever a user call for test.htm, it will call test.jsp. This is what we want here, right? So whenever you call for test.htm, it will call test.jsp. Let's see if it is working or not. Let's go back to the Firefox and let's say run. And okay, it's taking some time. Oh, we are calling for get questions, right? We should be calling test.htm. Now, if I run this code, you can see, oh, we are not getting questions. Can you see that we got a page, we got a design here, but we are not getting the data. Okay, so now we are not getting the data, right? So I got the design here, but not the data. So how do I get the data here? To get the data, of course, we need to write some code, right? Yes. So what I'm doing is, whenever you call for test.htm, it will call for test.jsp, right? Now, if you go to test.jsp, I just did one more thing here. So in this test.jsp, if you go down, you can see I'm sending a JSON request. Now, I don't know how many of you are comfortable with JSON here, or how many are comfortable with jQuery. Now, again, this is not about jQuery here. I'm not that good with jQuery. So what you have to do is you have to send a request for get JSON. So you have to send a request, and so I'm sending a JSON request here, and for that JSON request, I'm sending a request for get questions. Oh, but I'm sending a request for get questions, and get questions has .html. Let me remove that .html here. I don't need that. I will request for get JSON. Sorry, get questions. Now this get question should return a JSON file, right? Now, unfortunately, what we did till now is whenever I was running this code, I was getting those. Okay, when I say get questions now, if I say, let me just show you something. If I say get questions, not .html, but without .html, if I say get questions, okay, you can see we are getting data, but this data is not in. We are not getting data in a JSON format. I want data in a JSON format. So to do that, if you want to convert data into JSON format, you don't have to do much about that, okay? It's very simple. What you have to do is you just have to return the list of questions. The awesome thing about Spring is Spring internally has a JSON library which will convert your list into JSON. You don't have to do much about that. In fact, earlier we used to do everything by ourselves. We need to convert the JSON file. We had to create a JSON file from the list, but now we have an inbuilt library called as JSON. So using JSON, we can actually fetch data. We can convert the list of questions into a JSON format. And that's it. Let's try to work with this now. If I say get questions, you will get the same questions, but in a different format. You will get a JSON format here. Can you see that? We got everything in a JSON format, and that's what I love about Firefox. You can see we got everything in a proper JSON format. Again, when you fire the same query in Chrome, if I'm not wrong, you will get a normal JSON text. But in Firefox, what you get is can you see that we got a normal JSON text here? But in Firefox, you can see everything in JSON format. It is much readable. Okay, and I can see we have 15 people watching and 10 likes and 3 dislikes. Come on, guys, you can hit that like button to get to motivate me. Okay, so yeah, so you can see we got JSON here, right? So what I'm going to do now is in test.jsp, I'm sending a JSON request. Now this JSON request will give you the JSON data, right? So data which is we are getting here. Not this one, but this one. So whatever data you are getting here, you can actually fetch. So you're fetching that data which goes to JSON1 text. So okay, again, if you're not familiar with jQuery and AJAX request, so when you send a AJAX request, so this is AJAX request here, which we can do that with the help of get JSON method. This is a jQuery stuff. If you're not comfortable with jQuery, just do watch jQuery videos, and then you will understand what I'm talking about. So get JSON is a jQuery thing, because see, how do we know that this is jQuery? So whenever you have $ and dot, so whenever you say dot and method or function name, that's a jQuery thing. Okay, so when you send a jQuery thing, when you send a AJAX request, it is sending a request. Whatever data, whatever response you get from a server, I mean, you are getting a response. You're getting this response from a server, right? Now that response will be stored in JSON1. So that response will be JSON1. Now this JSON1 will have all the questions. Now what I'm doing now is, first of all, I'm fetching all the question IDs. Because the idea is, let's say if you get all the questions and on the page you are showing all the questions. the moment you are showing all the questions, you have to give answers, right? As a student, you will give answers. Now at the end, when you click on submit, those questions and answers should go to the server, right, for the verification. If you, let's say, out of five questions, you have answered three right questions, how do you verify those three right questions, right, or three right answers? So those questions will be going to server. So what I'll be doing now is I'll be sending the question ID and the answer. So whatever answer you gave to for that particular question ID, I will send out on a server. To do that, first of all I'm fetching all the question IDs. So from the JSON, which is JSON1, in JSON1 we got all the questions, right? So I'm fetching all the question ID which I'm storing in QS. Now QS is an array here where I have all the questions. So we got all the question ID in QS. That's the first thing we did. The next thing what I want to do is, when the moment you load your questions, the moment you load your questions, what it will do is it will load that question. And okay, first I think we should first run this code just to get the understanding what is happening behind the scenes. So if I say test.htm and if I say enter, can you see that we got question and we got options as well? I know the UI is not that good. So the UI is not that good, I know about that, but then at least we are getting questions, right? So we got the question and we got the option. So when I say my favorite technology, of course it's Java. I will say next. Which compilation of Java application? Ignore that spelling mistakes. Application we have to use. Which compilation? This is a wrong question, I guess. Why the compilation of? Oh, okay. We have to use a class file, and then Java ID totally depend on. Okay, we are not able to print that thing. Okay, that's a question mark. Dash concept. So Java is based on object-oriented questions. Okay, next one. Java runs on which platform? All the platforms, right? We'll click on next, and then okay, we got the same question again because of some database issue. That's a different thing. So when I click on submit, can you see that we are sending all the data on the address bar? How exactly it is happening? So we are doing that. We are doing that on the test.js page. So if I go to my editor, again the entire project will be uploaded on GitHub once the session gets over. So once the session gets over, I will upload the same code which we are doing now on GitHub. You can access those codes and you can make it work for yourself. Okay, so you can see we are sending a request to verify.htm. So what I'm doing here is we got all the questions from the server. I'm sending a request to get questions where I'm getting the JSON data. So the moment I'm getting a data from the server which is going in JSON1, so from JSON1 I'm fetching one question. So that one question, so see we got 5 questions, right? I want to show the first question, and to do that we have a counter. Again, the people who are good with Java, they know about this thing, right? So they know they know the counter. So initially the counter will start with 0, and then I'm fetching the first question. To do that, this is my elements of the page. So we got a question number. You can see if you see the output here, this is your question number, right? So question number 1. We are getting that because of this one, because we have an element which is Q and O, and then we got a question. We are getting this question because of this one. We are getting this question because of Q. We are getting the options because of option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, right? And we are fetching all this data from the JSON. So whatever data you got from JSON1, we are assigning that to JSON. So you can see we got JSON. Okay, so we got a JSON and we are assigning that value JSON1 to JSON here, and we are fetching data from JSON. Now you might be wondering why I did that, why I copied the content from JSON1 to JSON. It's because the moment I click on next, what should happen when I click on next? Because the moment I click on next, it should increment the value, right? It should increment the value of this 1 to 2, and then it should also change the question. To do that, we have created something called as a dot click, the click function. Okay, so we got a click function here, and that click function is happening on a next element. So the way we have next element, we also have a previous element. So if I scroll down, we have a previous element. The code may look difficult, but then once I upload this code on GitHub, okay, so the moment you click on GitHub, you will get the entire project, and then you can have a look on the code, you will get the clear understanding of it. Okay, so Okay, so we got this thing. We got a previous. So we got a before function. We got a next question. We got a next button, and we got a previous button, right? So when you click on next, this is what happens. When you click on previous, it will go back. So every time you click plus, I mean, every time you say next, it will increment the value of I, and every time you say previous, it will decrement the value of I. Okay. So when you click on next button, this is what's happening, right? It is changing the question every time you click on next. So when you click on next, it changes the question. Okay, so it is happening because of this I++. The thing is, if you remember this JSON1, so JSON1 is a point where you are getting all the questions, right? And the scope of JSON1 is only for this particular method, which is not available for the next one, right? And that's why what I did is I have created one more variable which is called a JSON, so that when I get this data from JSON1, I can assign that value to JSON, so that now this JSON has a bigger scope, right? It can be accessed from anywhere. And that's where we are doing here. So we can access that JSON from anywhere. It can be accessed from, so in the next dot click as well, I can access that JSON thing. So I can access JSON here. So we can access that in next, and we can also access that for previous. Okay, now what next? Now once we got this thing, we are getting all these questions, right? So you can see when I say while compile of Java application. Okay, so when I click on next, we are getting all this data, right? Now question arises, when I click on end test, what happens? When I click on none of this, and when I say next, when I say iOS, that's a wrong answer, I know. So when I click on any of this answer here, and when I click on end test, what happens? I want to send all your questions and answers on the server, right? Because the verification will be done on server. Now, how do you think we'll be verifying this thing? So to verify, so what I've did is on that button which is end test. So if I go to design now, so can you see that when you say end test, the moment you say end test, which is the button you can see on the screen, it calls a function called as go. Now go is a function in JavaScript. I mean, it's not a predefined function. We have created that function here, and that function is defined somewhere below. So somewhere here. Okay, so can you see that we got a go function here? Now every time you click on end test, it will call a go function. Now inside go function, what I'm doing is whatever you have selected. Oh, we have one more point here which I forgot. What happens when you click on next? Because see, if you are giving the first answer here, if you are giving the first answer is, let's say, AWS, when you click on next, we want to preserve that data, right? Whatever you have selected in the last answer. So I'm doing that in one of the array here. So every time you click on next, okay, where is that? So every time you click on next, you can see we are checking which one is actually checked before. So is it OPT1 which is checked? In that case, it will answer, the answer would be 1. If it is OPT2 which is checked, the answer would be 2. If the OPT3 is checked, the answer would be 3. The OPT4 is checked, the answer would be 4. So we are also saving that data somewhere. So we have an array which is called as answers, in which you are storing all the data, right? So at the end, when you click on go, you have to send two things. You have to send the question IDs, and you have to send the answers. So if you remember, question IDs are stored in QS, and now the answers are stored in answers. So we have two arrays. One array has question IDs, and second array has answers. I hope everyone you're getting the stuff which we are talking about, which we are talking now. In case if you are new to this session, you have to watch earlier 5 or 6 videos just to get the understanding what we are doing in the live project. Okay, so we got a question IDs here, and we got answers, right? I want to send this question IDs and answer. Okay, one more thing. When I click on that end test, after clicking next, when I click on end test, can you see that in address bar what we are sending is, we are sending tname, because see, whenever you give a test, you have to give a test based on some topics, right? It may be Java, it may be C++, it may be any language. So in that case, we have to specify the language as well. Again, we are not verifying that here. That we'll be doing later. The main focus here is this answers. So the question ID 1 which I have selected, I mean the question ID 1 is 12, because we are getting random questions, right? So you can get questions in any way. Then we are getting the answer 1 as 2 because I have selected the second option. For question ID 2 which is 9, I have selected the answer which is again 2. For question ID 3, I have selected the answer 1, for the answer selected 2. And I guess for every answer I've selected for every question I've selected the second answer. That's why you can see all the answers are 2, 2, 2. I want to send this question to this. I want to send all this thing to the server, right? The way I have created that URL is by using a for loop. So using the concept of appending, if you remember the concatenation operator, using the concatenation operator, I have concatenated everything to create one request. And I'm sending that request to this server by calling verify.htm. I'm sending the tname, and then I'm also sending the JSON data. So I'm sending all the data in a JSON. Okay, now it is not a JSON format actually. I'm sending data in any particular format. I'm just giving a name for a JSON. Okay, because I was doing some experiment and then later I realized instead of sending a JSON request, we can also send a normal data. In fact, it will be better if you send a request in a post format, because if you use post, by default we are sending a get request, right? I want to send a post request where you will not see all these things on the address bar. And then once you got the link, we are calling that page using JSP call. And that's why you are getting that page which is verify.htm. But then question arises, we are calling for verify.htm. So we have to create one more controller which can work with verify.htm. Okay, now the thing is, okay, before going ahead, if you are new to this session, just click on the like button so that I will know that you're liking this session. So I'm sending this request to verify.htm, right? And so we have to create a controller to accept that, right? So in the question controller, we have to create a controller which can accept the request for verify.htm. So what I will do is I will create a controller here. I will mention something like this. Okay, so I have created this verify.htm. So whenever a user calls for verify.htm, I will call this verify method. Now this verify method will take multiple parameters. As you can see, we got question ID 1. I have just written only for question ID 1. We should be writing for question ID 2, for answer ID 1, answer ID 2, all those things, right? We can do that. But instead of that, instead of having all those values, there is one way. You can create a class here and you can send all this data there. So what I would recommend you people to do is you try this code by yourself. Create a class. That class will have 10 properties. Question ID 1, question ID 2, question ID 3, question ID 4, question ID 5, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, answer 4, answer 5. So in total, you will be having 10 properties. Create a class with 10 properties. The advantage would be here, you simply have to use @model attribute, and let's name that class as maybe a question answer class. So create a class called as question answer and just use model attribute, and you can simply specify the object of that, and all the questions and answer will be stored in that class. And later on, you can verify what is this code. Okay, so in this session, we are focused more on the verification or the design. So again, I will be uploading this project on GitHub for you to watch or to check. So download the project, clone this project from GitHub, have a look, import this project on your IDE, and just make it work with that, and try to complete this thing. Again, I'll be completing this thing, and I will upload the project on GitHub for you to watch, or for you to clone it. So yeah, and in the next live session, we'll be talking about result generation. How can we generate a result if you get all these questions? So yeah, that's it. This is what I wanted to talk to you. I mean, I wanted to convey to you today. Just let me go for a quick recap what we have done. So first of all, I wanted to fetch all the questions, and that's where I'm using get questions. So the moment you say get questions, it will fetch all the questions from the database, and it will return you these questions. The thing is, these questions will be returned in a JSON format. The reason why we are getting JSON format here is because of response body. The moment you say response body, it will return a JSON format, right? Okay, now why JSON, why not XML, is because by default Spring supports JSON. That's why we are getting JSON here. So once we got a JSON data, we are sending a JSON data. Okay, that's good. Okay, we need to call this from somewhere, right? So what I'm calling is from the address, from the browser, I'm calling for test.htm. So I'm calling for test.htm. The moment I call for test.htm, you can see I'm getting a question. I'm not just getting one question, I'm getting 5 questions. Now those 5 questions are actually coming from database, and so when we call test.htm, we are actually calling test.jsp. This test.jsp is sending a AJAX request, which is a asynchronous request to the server to get JSON data. And what we are doing is we are fetching one question at one time. So every time you click on next, you will get a next question. Again, we are not sending 5 requests, okay? We are sending only 1 request. So we are not wasting lots of server time. We are not wasting lots of bandwidth here. So we are sending only 1 request. We are getting 5 questions. And when you click on next, it will give you the next question. That's how the things are working here, okay? So every time you click on next, it is going for next. And the moment you click on end test, that end test will take you to the next question. I mean, it will submit your question to the server. And the way you can do that is by I hope you know the concept of window.location.href, which will send which will redirect your request to some other link. So whatever link you provide here will take you to that link. And for that, I have created a link which is verified.htm, and I'm sending all this data. Now in the question controller, I'm creating a method which is verified.htm, where you have a method called as verify, which is taking only one parameter now. You have to change this code for the entire object. So yeah, this is what you have to do if you have to complete the project and make it work. In the next session, we'll try to complete this code. In fact, I will be completing this code and I will upload this project on GitHub, and we'll try to do the result model in the next session. So that's it from this session, everyone. So let me just stop the recording. This video will be uploaded for you